Welcome back to Recapped. Today we are going to recap a 1992 romantic drama movie titled Bitter Moon. A classy couple, Nigel and Fiona, encounters another couple, Oscar and Mimi, during a cruise. Nigel is captivated by Oscar's erotic and sadistic past with Mimi. This impacts his marriage with Fiona. But before we begin, please consider subscribing to this channel. Now without wasting any further time, let's begin, shall we? A British couple, Nigel and Fiona Dobson, are on their way to India on a Mediterranean cruise ship bound for Istanbul. Nigel meets a lovely French woman named Mimi while dancing alone in the ship's bar. Nigel then meets Oscar, his much older and crippled American spouse, who is acerbic, cynical, jaded, and a failing writer. Later that night, Oscar takes Nigel to his cabin and describes in detail how he and Mimi met on a bus in Paris and fell madly in love. Fiona gets an explanation from Nigel. Both of them are discussed in Oscar's bravado, but Nigel is enthralled by Mimi, who taunts him. Oscar later recounts their bondage, sadomasochism and voyeurism experiments. Mr. Singh, a cultured Indian gentleman, is traveling with his young daughter Amrita when Nigel and Fiona meet him. Nigel goes to see Mimi in her cabin after fleeing from a bridge game, but it turns out she and Oscar have played a joke on him. Nigel wants to leave, but Oscar keeps the conversation going by explaining how their hate/love relationship grew. He attempted to break up with Mimi due to boredom, but she begged him to let her live with him. He agreed under any circumstances, but then began to indulge in sadistic fantasies at her expense, humiliating her in public. When Mimi became pregnant, he forced her to have an abortion, claiming that he would be a terrible father. He was taken aback by her condition when he went to see her in the hospital and almost gave up trying to drive her away. He promised her a Caribbean vacation, but he got off the plane right before it took off. Mimi sobbed as she walked away by herself. As they leave Oscar's cabin, Nigel and Mimi meet and kiss. Fiona is later discovered flirting with a young man in a bar, which he discovers later. Nigel is warned not to overextend himself, and she assures him that anything he can do, she can do better. Oscar continues his story as Nigel walks over to him. After 2 years of partying and one-night stands, he walked in front of a car. Mimi surprised him by dropping by the hospital where he was recovering from minor injuries and a femur fracture. Mimi yanked him from his bed and hung him from his traction device after shaking his hand. Oscar had no choice but to allow Mimi to return to his home and care for him. She took pleasure in demeaning and dominating him after being paralyzed in this way, as well as seducing men in front of him. Oscar received a gun as a birthday present from her. He was desperate and wanted to die at the time. After experiencing highs and lows together, they realized they needed each other and married. As he awkwardly tries to woo Mimi, Oscar encourages and coaches Nigel. Things heat up when Fiona sees them dancing together at a New Year's Eve party. Oscar had forced Fiona to attend the party, she explains. She then performs an erotically charged dance with Mimi, ending with a passionate kiss. The other guests at the party applaud this. A stormy sea interrupts the party, and the two women leave together. Nigel takes a bottle of booze outside and screams his displeasure into the wind and waves. In Oscar's cabin, Nigel discovers Fiona sleeping naked next to Mimi. According to Oscar, the two women have shared intimate moments. Oscar threatens him with a revolver, and Nigel backs away. Oscar commits suicide after shooting Mimi while she sleeps. As the bodies of Oscar and Mimi are stretched off the ship, Fiona and Nigel embrace each other, terrified. Mr. Singh instructs his young daughter to console them. And this is where the movie comes to an end. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, until next time.